So Mark Carney just made a power move that's got Quebec angrier than a hockey fan watching the Leafs blow a 3-goal lead in the third period. Again. The new Prime Minister decided his buddy Mark Wiseman should be Canada's ambassador to the United States, and let me tell you, Quebecers are not exactly sending him a thank you card. Pascal Paradis from the Part 1 Québécois basically said Carney's just following the federal government's greatest tradition, completely ignoring Quebec. Ouch. That's the kind of burn that leaves a mark, pun absolutely intended. But here's the thing, Carney won 44 seats in Quebec last election, almost enough to get that majority he wanted so badly. So the question isn't just whether Quebecers are mad, it's whether they're mad enough to actually do something about it. Buckle up, because Canadian politics just got spicier than poutine with extra pepper, and trust me, this story has more layers than a Timmy's breakfast sandwich. Let's talk about Mark Wiseman for a second, because this guy's resume reads like a LinkedIn fever dream. Investment banker, close personal friend of Carney, and oh yeah, he's tied to something called the Century Initiative. If you don't know what that is, imagine someone looked at Canada's immigration numbers and said, you know what this needs? Way more zeros. The Century Initiative has been pushing for massive immigration increases by the year 2100, which sounds great if you're into nation building and urban planning, but not so great if you're a Quebecer who spent decades trying to protect French language and culture in a sea of English-speaking North America. It's like inviting someone to a potluck who's openly said they think your signature dish needs to be completely replaced. Not exactly tactful. And it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Wiseman has also been critical of supply management, which for those of you playing along at home, is the system that protects Canadian dairy farmers, poultry producers, and egg farmers from being steamrolled by massive American agribusiness. Quebec has a lot of those farmers. Like, a lot. So when your new ambassador to the United States is on record saying yeah, maybe we should reconsider protecting these industries, Quebec farmers are looking at Carney like he just told them their cheese curds aren't good enough for poutine. That's basically treason in Quebec. But here's where it gets really interesting. Michel Brault, who spent 10 years working for liberal heavy hitters like Melanie Joly and Pablo Rodriguez, says this appointment alone probably won't sink Carney in Quebec. One bad decision? Quebecers can forgive that. We're talking about a province that's dealt with federal governments for over 150 years. They've seen worse. But Brault points out something crucial, it's not the single punch that knocks you out, it's the combination. And Carney's starting to rack up a combo that would make a Street Fighter player jealous. Let's count the hits, shall we? First, there's the Alberta Memorandum of Understanding, which basically saw the federal government make nice with Alberta on energy and climate policy. Great for Alberta, not so great if you're former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, who watched his climate agenda get watered down faster than cheap beer at a college party. Guilbeault literally warned that the feds might be fueling Quebec separatism by walking back climate commitments. When your own minister is saying you're accidentally giving ammunition to the separatists, that's not great optics. That's like handing your opponent a stick and then acting surprised when they hit you with it. Then Guilbeault left cabinet altogether. Now, you might think losing one minister isn't a big deal, but in Quebec politics, symbolism matters. Guilbeault was a well-known environmental activist before entering politics, a Quebec voice in federal cabinet, and losing him sends a message. Whether that message is intentional or not doesn't really matter, because perception is reality in politics, and the perception is that Quebec voices are getting quieter in Ottawa while Alberta voices are getting louder. And if that wasn't enough, let's talk about Mark Miller, who just became culture minister and immediately decided to share his feelings about the French language debate in Quebec. He said he's fed up with what he called identity-based arguments about protecting French. Now, I'm not a political strategist, but telling Quebec you're tired of hearing about their concerns regarding French language preservation is like telling your significant other you're bored during a conversation about their feelings. Technically you might have a point, but you're not winning any awards for sensitivity. In a province where language isn't just communication but cultural survival, that's not just a misstep, it's a faceplant. So now we've got this perfect storm brewing. The Wiseman appointment, the Alberta MOU, Guilbeault's exit, Miller's comments, it's all adding up to what Brault called a drip, drip, drip that's seeping into the question everyone's asking. Does Mark Carney actually get Quebec? Because right now, it's looking like he gets Bay Street, he gets boardrooms, he gets international finance, but when it comes to understanding what makes Quebec tick, the jury's still out. And that jury is getting increasingly impatient. Here's the political math that should terrify Carney's team. Those 44 Quebec seats he won? They're not guaranteed next time. Quebec voters have a long history of switching allegiances faster than you can say referendum. They went from Conservative to NDP to Liberal to Bloc Québécois and back again over the past few decades. They're not locked into any party, they're locked into their interests, and if they feel those interests aren't being respected, they will pivot so fast it'll make your head spin. The Bloc Québécois is already salivating at this situation. They're like a wolf watching a shepherd leave the gate open. This is their bread and butter. Their entire existence is built on the argument that Quebec's voice gets lost in federal politics, and Carney's handing them evidence on a silver platter. The crazy part is, this might all be unintentional. Maybe Carney genuinely believes Wiseman is the best person for the ambassador job. Maybe the Alberta MOU made sense from a national unity perspective. Maybe Miller was just expressing frustration after a long day. But in politics, intention doesn't matter nearly as much as impact, and the impact is that Quebec feels like it's being taken for granted. Again. It's the political equivalent of forgetting your anniversary. Sure, you were busy, sure you had other things on your mind, but your partner doesn't care about your excuses, they care that you forgot. The question now is whether Carney can course correct before this becomes a full-blown crisis. Can he make a big symbolic gesture that shows Quebec is listening? Can he give Quebec some wins that matter to them, not just token appointments or empty promises? Because if this drip, drip, drip turns into a flood, those 44 seats could evaporate, and with them, any hope of a majority government. Quebec has always been the kingmaker in Canadian federal politics, and right now, the king is looking pretty shaky. So there you have it, folks. Mark Carney's ambassador pick has Quebec asking some serious questions about whether Ottawa actually cares about them, and the clock is ticking on his chance to provide some answers. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to Canadian Insights because we're covering Canadian politics multiple times a day, keeping you updated on all the chaos, drama, and occasionally good decisions coming out of Ottawa. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me whether you think Carney can win back Quebec or if he's already lost them, and turn on notifications because trust me, this story is far from over. Canadian politics never sleeps, and neither do we. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.